At 80 years old, Patti Boyd, the iconic model and muse of the 1960s, is shedding light on the darker aspects of her marriage to legendary musician Eric Clapton. Once seen as the epitome of rock and roll romance, their tumultuous relationship is now being re-examined through Boyd's candid revelations, leaving fans stunned. To understand the complexities of her life and the untold stories of her marriage, it's essential to explore Boyd's early life and the remarkable journey that made her a cultural icon. Boyd's early life and career. Born Patricia Ann Boyd on March 17, 1944, in Taunton, Somerset, England, Patti Boyd's life story began with a family history of adaptation and instability. As the eldest of 4 siblings, her childhood was shaped by her father's service in the Royal Air Force and a move to Nairobi, Kenya, where the family lived from 1948 to 1953. However, this chapter ended abruptly with her parents' divorce in 1952, leading to her mother's remarriage and the family's return to England. Boyd went to a number of convent boarding schools such as St. Agnes and St. Michael Convent Boarding School in East Grinstead, and finished her schooling with 3 GCE-level passes in 1961. In 1962, Boyd sought independence in London, where an accidental encounter with a photographer's assistant changed the trajectory of her life. Working as a shampoo girl at Elizabeth Arden's salon, she was spotted and started her career in modeling. Despite early rejections for her unconventional looks, Boyd's persistence paid off as she began gaining recognition for her striking features and innate ability to embody the spirit of 1960s fashion. By the mid-1960s, Boyd had established herself as one of the era's most sought-after models, gracing the covers of Vogue, Elle, and Vanity Fair. Her long hair, wide eyes, and youthful charm epitomized the swinging 60s, while collaborations with iconic photographers like David Bailey and Terence Donovan solidified her status. Boyd's signature, bohemian chic mixed with mod influence, was co-identified with the refinement and maturity of the time. She even set in motion an eminent designer, Ossie Clark, who christened several of his works after her. Boyd and George Harrison's tumultuous relationship. Boyd's breakthrough in fashion came during the period of the British invasion, made her a principal example of the cultural phenomenon of the 1960s. Bridging the gap between fashion and music, she represented and was the youthful, exuberant spirit of a revolutionary age, one which has left an unerasable mark on pop culture. Yet her world changed forever when she met George Harrison during the filming of A Hard Day's Night, 1964. Although at the time, Boyd was in a relationship with another person, Boyd was charmed by Harrison's traits, and they developed a relationship very rapidly. They married on January 21, 1966, and Boyd sat at the heart of Beatlemania and all the commotion that followed in being married to a Beatle. Boyd's impact on Harrison was immense and resulted in enduring songs such as Something and For You Blue, which voiced their shared feelings. Yet their marriage, rooted in the vibrant cultural milieu of the 1960s, faced significant challenges. Harrison's increasing interest in Eastern spirituality and meditation initially brought them together, but it later created tensions in their bond. Harrison's spiritual journey began in earnest during the mid-1960s, driven by his fascination with Indian music and philosophy, sparked by his friendship with Ravi Shankar and his introduction to the sitar. Boyd joined him on this path, accompanying him to India in 1966. Together they explored meditation and studied spiritual texts, attending lectures by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and immersing themselves in Eastern mysticism. Boyd later described this period as an education, where they soaked everything up, sharing a profound experience that initially deepened their bond amidst the chaos of fame. However, as Harrison's commitment to spirituality intensified, tensions began to surface. Boyd supported his pursuits but felt increasingly sidelined, as he became more involved with the Hare Krishna movement and devoted significant time to his spiritual community. She struggled with her diminishing role in their relationship, later reflecting on the isolation she felt and her desire for a purpose beyond being the little wife sitting at home. Adding to these challenges were Harrison's infidelities, which further strained their marriage. Boyd described him as a hot-blooded boy, drawn to the attention he received from women, a dynamic fueled by his fame, while Harrison's flirtations were often seen as harmless by others. Boyd experienced them as a painful assertion of his desirability that left her feeling insecure and neglected. As Harrison's flirtations evolved into full-blown affairs, Boyd's emotional isolation deepened. The most devastating betrayal came when Boyd discovered Harrison's affair with Maureen Starkey, the wife of Ringo Starr. This transgression not only shattered Boyd, but also strained friendships within the Beatles. Boyd described her humiliation upon finding Maureen at their home, lying on a mattress, while Harrison dismissed her presence with indifference. The incident marked a breaking point in Boyd's struggle to reconcile her love for Harrison with his repeated infidelities. Harrison's behavior forced Boyd into painful introspection as she grappled with feelings of betrayal and diminished self-worth. Reflecting on the marriage, she later admitted, "I felt that I had to leave George because things were getting really out of hand. He wanted to spread his wings and take advantage of being the handsome, famous, rich guy." Harrison's affairs not only eroded her trust, but also underscored the emotional distance created by his spiritual pursuits. While Boyd initially supported his journey into Eastern spirituality, it eventually became a source of alienation as his devotion intensified and excluded her. Adding to her distress, Boyd had quit her modeling career at Harrison's urging, believing it would alleviate some of the pressures in their relationship. Instead, the decision left her feeling unfulfilled and trapped in the role of the little wife sitting at home. The loneliness of watching Harrison embrace a lifestyle that excluded her emotional needs pushed Boyd to question her identity and purpose. Social gatherings, where Harrison thrived, often highlighted her sense of being an outsider in her own marriage. In 1971, Boyd took a decisive step toward reclaiming her autonomy by returning to modeling, debuting her comeback at an Aussie Clark fashion show. That decision represented her fortitude and also shifted her life course after sacrificing her own aspirations in her marital relationships for many years. However, the renewed pursuit of independence clashed with Harrison's spiritual ideals. While Harrison viewed her modeling career as incompatible with his values, Boyd saw it as a necessary outlet for creative expression and fulfillment. This discord, further compounded by Harrison's unfaithfulness and emotional distance, widened the chasm between them and contributed to the breakdown of their marriage. During this period of turmoil, Boyd also explored photography, which became an essential creative outlet. She documented moments from her life and the vibrant world around her, capturing the essence of the rock and roll era. Her photography not only provided a therapeutic means of self-expression, but also later emerged as a celebrated aspect of her legacy. Through exhibitions and publications, Boyd's work offered intimate glimpses into her life and the cultural fabric of the 1960s and 1970s, cementing her status as an artist beyond her identity as a model and muse. The finalization of the increasingly hostile rift between Boyd and Harrison resulted in them parting ways in 1974 after 8 years of marriage. Boyd has termed the decision incredibly hard and has noted that their relationship had become unbearable, having been driven to its breaking point by mutual emotional disconnection and Harrison's actions. Before their separation, however, Boyd had already met Eric Clapton, marking the beginning of a new and equally complex chapter in her life: Eric Clapton's relationship with Alice Ormsby Gore. To fully understand Clapton's relationship with Boyd, it is essential to consider his earlier romance with Alice Ormsby Gore. Clapton met Ormsby Gore in 1968 at a party in Chelsea, London. At just 17, Ormsby Gore was drawn to Clapton's fame and charisma, and their passionate romance quickly blossomed. However, their relationship was marked by tumult, largely due to Clapton's ongoing obsession with Boyd, who was then married to Harrison. This obsession caused much friction between Clapton and Ormsby Gore, involving recurrent separations and reconciliations. Adding to the complexity, both Clapton and Ormsby Gore succumbed progressively to substance abuse, while in each other's company, most prominently heroin addiction. Clapton later admitted that their life together was dominated by addiction, describing it as reclusive and fraught with instability. Ormsby Gore, deeply in love with Clapton, found herself caught in a cycle of enabling his addiction, even running errands to procure drugs for him. Despite her devotion, Clapton himself reflected that their relationship was more rooted in dependency than genuine love, an imbalance that ultimately led to their separation. Eric Clapton's relationship with Paula Boyd. Amidst this turmoil, Clapton's feelings for Patti Boyd intensified, leading to a brief and complicated relationship with her younger sister, Paula Boyd. Paula, born on March 14, 1951, in Nakuru, Kenya, was known not only for her beauty, but also for being the sister of Patti, who was married to George Harrison of the Beatles. Clapton and Paula began dating in December 1969, after Patti introduced them following a concert in Liverpool. Clapton was immediately smitten with Paula's charm, and after their first meeting they spent the evening together, dancing and bonding. Their relationship quickly progressed, and Paula moved in with Clapton at his home in Hurtwood Edge, Surrey. However, despite the excitement of the rock star lifestyle, the relationship was overshadowed by Clapton's ongoing emotional turmoil due to his intense infatuation with Patti. Though Clapton was romantically involved with Paula, his heart remained firmly attached to Patti. His profound longing for her was so powerful that it poured out through his music, most famously in the song Layla, which captured the depth of his feelings. This emotional conflict created tension in his relationship with Paula, as Clapton continued to express his feelings for Patti through letters, despite being with her sister. In Wonderful Tonight, Patti recounts how Clapton's letters to her reflected his struggles with unrequited love, contributing to the strain on his relationship with Paula. By March 1970, as Clapton's obsession with Patti grew, the tension between his feelings for her and his relationship with Paula became unsustainable. Patti, now married to George Harrison, received a letter from Clapton revealing his inner turmoil over his emotional conflict. Clapton's home life was deteriorating, and the letter revealed his desperation and longing for Patti, which was becoming impossible to ignore. As the months went by, it became increasingly clear that Clapton's emotional investment in Patti overshadowed his relationship with Paula. Despite having been seriously in love with Clapton, Paula began to realize that she was merely a substitute for Patti, someone to fill the void left by Patti's unavailability. This realization came into full focus during a trip to Miami where Clapton was recording Layla. There, Paula discovered that the song Layla was inspired by her sister, adding to her heartbreak. Paula felt her pride and self-esteem erode as she grappled with the painful truth that Clapton's heart belonged to someone else. Ultimately, the relationship between Clapton and Paula ended as his infatuation with Patti reached its peak. Their breakup marked a turning point for both, as Clapton's pursuit of a relationship with Patti Boyd began in earnest. After the end of his relationship with Paula, Clapton continued to struggle with his emotions regarding both sisters. His connection to Patti grew stronger as they navigated the complexities of love and fidelity within the volatile world of rock and roll fame. For Paula, the experience left lasting emotional scars. She had genuinely loved Clapton, yet she always felt overshadowed by her sister's presence in both their lives. Patti Boyd later reflected on this tumultuous period, acknowledging the emotional fallout. She recognized that while Clapton had once been deeply enamored with Paula, it was clear he could not escape his feelings for her sister. This situation highlighted the personal challenges individuals face when entangled in fame, where love is often complicated by desire, jealousy, and unfulfilled longing. Eric Clapton's tumultuous relationship with Patti Boyd. Despite the breakup, Clapton did not relent in his pursuit of Patti. He sent her a series of candid love letters, asking whether she still loved her husband or had another lover. This correspondence created a complex emotional landscape for Boyd, who was trying to navigate her troubled marriage to George Harrison while also grappling with Clapton's growing affection. For Patti, the emotional fallout was significant. Initially, she chose to remain loyal to Harrison despite her own feelings for Clapton. However, as her marriage deteriorated due to Harrison's infidelities and substance abuse, Patti found herself more drawn to Clapton's consistent affection and emotional support. Clapton, who had long pursued Patti, intensified his efforts, visiting her frequently and showering her with attention which she craved from her increasingly distant husband. In 1970, Clapton famously told Harrison, "I have to tell you, man, I'm in love with your wife." Complicating their friendship, Clapton's feelings were further reflected in the songs Layla and Wonderful Tonight, both of which he wrote about Patti and the moments they shared. In 1974, after her separation from Harrison, Patti Boyd found herself at a crossroads. Though Clapton had long pursued her during her marriage, the opportunity to be with him now seemed more attainable. They began dating shortly after her divorce was finalized in 1977. Their relationship blossomed into a passionate romance, and they married on March 27, 1979 in Tucson, Arizona. Interestingly, George Harrison attended their wedding and humorously referred to himself as their husband-in-law, showing that despite their complicated past, he had a level of camaraderie with Clapton. However, despite the initial happiness, Clapton and Boyd's marriage faced significant challenges. Clapton continued to struggle with alcoholism and substance abuse, which took a toll on their relationship. His struggles with alcoholism were reportedly a contributing factor to tensions in their relationship, which caused her considerable emotional distress and contributed to her own struggles with alcohol dependency. Boyd later reflected on how difficult it was to maintain stability in their relationship amid Clapton's personal struggles with substance abuse. Patti Boyd also faced emotional challenges related to childbearing during her marriage to Clapton. Clapton had long expressed a desire to have children with her, and they underwent several attempts at in vitro fertilization, IVF. However, despite their efforts, Boyd was unable to conceive. She has described the process as emotionally taxing, with each failed attempt deepening her sense of loss and frustration. The prospect of motherhood seemed elusive, and the strain on their marriage was exacerbated by these unfulfilled hopes. Although Clapton was supportive during the IVF process and encouraged Boyd throughout their attempts to have children, the strain of these emotional challenges, combined with his personal struggles, proved to be too much for their relationship. The situation took a devastating turn when Boyd discovered Clapton's infidelities. In 1985, Clapton fathered a daughter, Ruth, with Yvonne Kelly, and in 1986, he had a son, Connor, with Lori Del Santo. Boyd learned of Ruth's existence after their separation in 1988, but was informed about Connor while still married to Clapton. This revelation shattered Boyd, who described the discovery of his affairs as a stab in the heart, especially as she had been enduring the emotional toll of IVF treatments during that time. Boyd's trust in Clapton was reportedly strained by his infidelities, which coincided with her own emotional challenges related to motherhood. She had dreamed of building a family with him, but his actions made it clear that he was seeking fulfillment outside of their marriage. This betrayal deepened her emotional wounds, leading her to question her self-worth. In the aftermath of the breakdown of her marriage, Boyd reflected on how she had lost her sense of identity. She felt defined by her relationships with famous musicians and wondered, "I was no longer Mrs. Famous George or Mrs. Famous Eric." So Who Am I? I Am No One. Following her divorce from Clapton in 1989, Boyd sought therapy to process the emotional pain from both her marriages and to reclaim her sense of self. As part of this healing process, she turned to photography and writing, which allowed her to rediscover her identity outside the confines of motherhood or her associations with iconic musicians. Boyd's work in photography eventually gained recognition, with exhibitions around the world helping her establish herself as an artist in her own right. Her influence extended beyond the music and fashion worlds as she became a cultural icon representing the freedom and individuality of the 1960s. Her unique style and aesthetic sensibilities helped define the era, and fashion icon Mary Quant suggested that women should aspire to look like Boyd, as opposed to the traditional figures of glamour like Marlene Dietrich. Boyd's contributions to fashion, particularly as a symbol of 1960s style, continue to resonate across generations. In 2007, Boyd published her autobiography, Wonderful Tonight, George Harrison, Eric Clapton, and Me. The book provides a candid look into her personal life and professional journey, shedding light on her time as a model and muse for both Harrison and Clapton. It became an international bestseller and offered insight into the complexities of her relationships with two of rock music's biggest legends. Through this memoir, Boyd reclaimed her voice and her identity, moving beyond the narratives that had long defined her life and career of George Harrison. Now let's turn our attention to the life of George Harrison. Harrison, born on February 25, 1943 in Liverpool, England, came from a working-class Catholic family with Irish roots. He was the youngest of 4 children and was influenced by his mother's singing and his father's record collection. At 14 years of age, he acquired his first guitar. Harrison's musical career started in earnest upon forming a skiffle group and then later meeting Paul McCartney at a school meeting which eventually got him inducted into the Quarrymen, the precursor band to the Beatles. He was acclaimed both as an innovative guitarist as well as a songwriter. Harrison's perennial contributions included Something, Here Comes the Sun, and While My Guitar Gently Weeps, fusing rock with Indian musical influences. His song, Something, received widespread acclaim, earning praise from Frank Sinatra, who called it the greatest love song of the past 50 years. Sinatra's admiration led him to cover the song twice, showcasing its emotional depth and timeless appeal. Yet for Harrison, these covers elicited very mixed feelings. He was grateful for the recognition, but he felt such interpretations altered the original intent of his work and reflected his desire for artistic integrity. Something, coupled with Here Comes the Sun, was the turning point in Harrison's career, showing him as an equal songwriter in the ranks of the other Beatles. The love messages in this song are universally appealing, which has secured it a place in the annals of time and appreciation from other greats. Life and career of Eric Clapton. Shifting focus to Eric Clapton, Eric, born on March 30, 1945 in Ripley, Surrey, England, was the illegitimate child of Patricia, Molly, and Edward Walter Fryer. Clapton had a very rough childhood. His father left his mother when he was just a newborn baby and grew up with his maternal grandparents, believing all along that they were his parents. These emotional setbacks truly weighed heavily on him. Amidst such turmoil, young Clapton showed an artistic talent and took to music. His love for American blues, sparked by artists like B.B. King and Muddy Waters, propelled him to pursue music full-time, leading to his dropout from Kingston College of Art in 1961. His musical career started with stints in various bands such as the Roosters and Casey Jones and the Engineers before joining the Yardbirds in 1963 for his first taste of success. His guitar playing was innovative, and he was soon dubbed Slow Hand, setting him up for his many future successes in rock music. After leaving the Yardbirds, Clapton joined John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, further solidifying his reputation as a premier blues guitarist. In 1966, he co-founded the group Cream with bassist Jack Bruce and drummer Ginger Baker, a band that brilliantly combined rock and blues, producing classics like Sunshine of Your Love and Crossroads. Success with Cream launched Clapton as a superstar before their breakup in 1968. After the breakup of Cream, Eric Clapton formed the supergroup Blind Faith, featuring Steve Winwood. But the band dissolved after releasing just one album. He launched his solo career in 1970 with a self-titled debut, followed by his iconic work with Derek and the Dominoes, which produced the timeless hit, Layla. Clapton's 1974 album, 461 Ocean Boulevard, marked a shift toward more melodic songwriting, highlighted by the chart-topping I Shot the Sheriff. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Eric Clapton cemented his legacy with a string of successful albums, including Slow Hand and Unplugged. The latter featured Tears in Heaven, a deeply emotional tribute to his late son. Clapton's ability to transcend genres has ensured his relevance across generations, solidifying his status as one of the best-selling artists of all time. His collaborations, particularly with George Harrison, further showcase his extraordinary versatility and influence. Eric Clapton and George Harrison's creative partnership. In the late 1960s, Clapton and Harrison forged a creative partnership during a challenging time for both musicians. Their friendship, which began when Clapton first met the Beatles in 1964, culminated in Clapton's iconic guitar solo on Harrison's White Album track, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Harrison insisted Clapton play the song despite Clapton's initial hesitation, marking a historic moment in music. Beyond this, Clapton became an integral part of Harrison's creative projects, contributing to the Wonderwall music soundtrack and lending his talents to the landmark album All Things Must Pass. The two even co-wrote Badge for Cream's final album, further highlighting their musical synergy and mutual respect. Their bond extended beyond the studio, providing both men with emotional support during turbulent personal times, including Harrison's struggles within the Beatles and his troubled marriage. While Harrison's collaborations with Clapton flourished, he was also charting his solo artistic path, often overshadowed by John Lennon and Paul McCartney within the Beatles. Harrison sought to establish a distinct identity. By 1966, he had embraced Indian music and spirituality, introducing innovative elements like the sitar into Western pop, with tracks such as Norwegian Wood. This Bird Has Flown. This shift allowed Harrison to transcend traditional rock boundaries and develop a more personal and sophisticated sound. His use of non-resolving tones, volume swells, and slide guitar became hallmarks of his style. As seen in masterpieces like Here Comes the Sun, which blended emotional depth with technical brilliance, the culmination of Harrison's desire for independence came with his solo career, post-Beatles. His debut solo album, Wonderwall Music, released in 1968 as the soundtrack for the film, directed by Joe Massoud, achieved significant success and marked a significant departure from the Beatles' sound. This album reflected Harrison's exploration of Indian music and his growing interest in the fusion of the musical traditions of the East with those of the West. It boasted an unprecedented array of instrumental tracks that ranged from Indian classical to Western rock. His pioneering work, especially with the sitar, showed his versatility and set a benchmark for world music fusions that were to follow. Critics hailed the album as an enchanting mix of Indian and Western sounds that placed Harrison as one of the first artists to introduce Indian music to the West. While not a huge commercial success in the UK, Wonderwall Music fared surprisingly well in the United States, reaching 49 on the Billboard charts with a notable 16-week run. The album's unique sound and Harrison's reputation as a member of the Beatles may have contributed to its initial interest, though it did not achieve a high chart position. Public perception of Wonderwall music has varied over the years. Contemporary reviews ranged from praise for its inventiveness to critiques labeling it primarily as an album for dedicated fans. For instance, Rolling Stone described it as inventive, while others noted it might only appeal to established fans of Harrison's work. In hindsight, many consider it an important step in Harrison's career, showcasing his willingness to experiment and break away from conventional rock norms. The legacy of Wonderwall music extends beyond its initial release. It is often cited as an early example of what would later be categorized as world music, influencing countless musicians who sought to blend different musical traditions. Some critics have noted Harrison's influence on future artists interested in blending different musical traditions, positioning him alongside other influential musicians like Paul Simon and Peter Gabriel. Harrison's subsequent landmark triple album, All Things Must Pass, which came out on November 27, 1970, would further seal his position as a solo artist. It was the first big project after the breakup of the Beatles and is considered by most as his most important work. Merging themes of rock and pop with spirituality, the album represents Harrison's maturation as a songwriter and musician. It is a 3-disc album where the first 2 discs contain original works. The third disc, named Apple Jam, includes informal jam sessions with other musicians. Harrison and Phil Spector co-produced. The latter used his signature wall of sound technique to full effect, giving the album its signature deep layering. The contributing members to the project included Eric Clapton, Ringo Starr, Billy Preston, and members of Badfinger, and Delaney and Bonnie's Friends Band. Musically speaking, All Things Must Pass ranges from rock and gospel to Indian influences. Much of Harrison's philosophical attitude is evident in the title track, while hits such as My Sweet Lord and What Is Life display his work in slide guitar and depth in the lyrics of songs. The themes running across this album are often about spirituality, love, and how fleeting life is. Upon release, All Things Must Pass achieved universal acclaim and commercial success, topping the charts in both the UK and the US. It was the first solo album by a former Beatles to reach such heights, with the lead single, My Sweet Lord, also dominating the charts globally, solidifying Harrison as a solo artist. Critics lauded the album for its ambitious scope and emotional resonance, with Rolling Stone describing it as Wagnerian in its grandeur, and marking a significant artistic breakthrough for Harrison. Over time, All Things Must Pass has become one of the greatest albums in rock history, often ranked among the best solo albums by any Beatle. Its influence on musicians exploring themes of spirituality and self-discovery has cemented its status as a career-defining work, reflecting Harrison's growth as an artist, following his time with the Beatles. What do you think about Patti Boyd's revelation regarding her relationship with Eric Clapton? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more. Thanks for watching.